All right, guys. I really truly wish I had more effort in me to make a super sweet video on this, but I'm gonna try to get down to the points here. We got Commish Chronicle back at it, trade deadline special. As we're in week 19, trade deadline is next week, so something to keep in mind as we go into next steps. So we can't have a Commish Chronicle without having a power ranking. So we've got our standings on the side here. These are the real-time standings along with our power ranking. So we got Curiosity Killed Debrincat in first in both. Return to Captain Thick Nick in second. We've got Messier Guaranteed jumping up from 5th in the standings to 3rd in the power rankings. I believe they've won 5 of their last 6. Messier Guaranteed is really on a good run as we approach the playoffs, which, as we know, Messier Guaranteed is our former champ. The exact time to shine. Bettman Returns drops to 4th in the power rankings. And Grisky's All-Stars drops from 4th down to 5th in the power rankings, having a rough go. Both of those teams recently compared to how they've been doing on the season, but still very strong. Then we've got Thunder Down Under holding 6th both in the standings and the power rankings. Mr. Beninja Express drops from 7th to 8th in the power rankings, swapping spots with the replacements, who takes on 7th after a real rough patch the last little while for Mr. Beninja Express, including a loss to the replacements several weeks ago. Then we've got 9th, It's Our Year. 10th is in the standings is Yaz, but they are 11th in the power rankings. Halifax Highlanders jumps from 11th in the standings up to 10th in the power rankings, their highest power ranking I believe yet. And for some reason, North Korea, I have it as a thing. So there's North Korea in last place, just having a blast down there. Moving into the important stuff. The Week 19 trade board. So I reached out to each of you wanting to know a little bit of information to help out people with how they're going to be determining who to trade with, what you might be looking for, and this might help some of those conversations along. So you're either classified as a buyer, neutral, or a seller. So we'll quickly go through it. So Curiosity Killed Debrincat looking in first place right now in the league by a large margin, probably has first place locked down. They're a buyer. They're well-rounded off. They're looking for well-rounded offensive players and a third goalie. They're not super eager, I think, to make any big deals, but they're open to listening. On the block for them, anything past the 3rd round, so they're not interested in giving up their 1st or 2nd round picks. And anyone but Matthew Tkachuk, JT Miller, Hellebuck, Hallmark, or Adam Fox. Those are the untouchables for Curiosity Killed Debrincat. And then we got Return to Captain Thick Nick, also a buyer. They want hitters who can score. Don't we all, right? But looking for top-end power forwards is how I kind of take that. Guys who are going to fill in the depth stats while also putting points on the board. On the block for them, anything really is available from the way they're talking, but their top assets, they said, are 1st, 2nd, and 3rd round picks and defensemen. So open to trading any and all of those picks or players. Then we got Bettman Returns. It's the only one I put as a conservative buyer. He's still trying to figure out, which we're going to go over on this, how next year's draft and keepers are going to work. So that's why I put conservative buyer for Bettman Returns. Wants our defenseman and a 3rd goalie. You're going to see the 3rd goalie here if you're looking quickly at the page. An extra goalie is a common theme across a lot of teams. On the block, literally anyone except their untouchables, which are McKinnon and Kucherov. Bettman wants to retain both of those players for their hopeful run in the playoffs. So anybody but them, they are willing to take offers on. Then we got Gritsky's All-Stars. 4th in the standings right now and neutral. is how they look at themselves. They're open to looking at a goalie and other players, but not actively shopping. On the block for them, kind of top assets that they're willing to part with would be guys like Toffoli, Talbot, or Jonathan Marchessault. But again, Risky's All-Star is fairly neutral, willing to talk, but not actively shopping. Messier Guarantee, also going to be a buyer from 5th. I mean, as we just saw in the power rankings, Messier Guarantee has jumped up to 3rd. And so they see their value and they're looking to buy. Learn their lesson from past years, and when they bought at the trade deadline last year, that led to a 1st overall and a championship. So, Messier Guarantee's wants, in this order, are goalies, defensemen, and forwards. Nothing in particular, but again, goalie comes to mind for all of these top teams looking to pad that depth in goal. On the block for Messier Guarantee, anything again past the 3rd round, similar to Curiosity Code DeBrincat, so just not 1st or 2nd round picks, as well as guys like Lindholm, Bjorkstrand, Pionk, Sanderson, Raymond, and Gerard, willing to give up any of those players. Messier Guarantee, buyer, looking to talk. Thunder Down Under, sitting in 6th place. There's a big resurgence here for Thunder Down Under. So they're coming at it pretty neutrally. Happy with where they're at. If they did have a want, they say that it's for a 3rd goalie, and they're open discussion on other players. But 3rd goalie is their main priority if they can get depth in that slot. On the block, anybody except essentially Draisaitl and Bedard. Not actively shopping anyone in particular, but just don't come out with offers for Draisaitl and Bedard. Thunder is not moving them. Then we got Mr. Beninja Express, also coming in as neutral. Now wants, picks, but certainly open to player discussion. On the block for Mr. Beninja Express would be his 2nd and 3rd ranked goalies, which are Markstrom and Samsonov, and any skaters except for Moritz Seider, Philip Forsberg, and Tage Thompson. This does include guys like Artemi Panarin and things like that. But again, Mr. Beninja Express is fairly neutral, doesn't feel the need to make any big moves, but certainly open to discussion. The replacements, sitting in 8th, the final playoff spot, also sitting as neutral. Wants for the replacements, similar to Return to Captain Thick Nick, hitters who can score, so top power forwards, somebody who's going to give them points and hits. And on the block for them, if they had to choose, was McTavish, Farabee, and Middlestat. But again, not actively shopping, but open to hearing discussion. Then we got 9th in the standings. It's our year, our first seller. It's our year, just sitting outside of the playoffs right now. Still has an opportunity to make it in, but they're considering themselves a seller. Wants right now are picks or some depth pieces to stay competitive and maybe try to sneak into the playoffs. On the block for them is going to be Skinner, Tuck, Thompson, among other players. And it's our year. Wanted to point out, I believe, that I'm assuming this is specifically for Thompson, and I guess for Skinner, that the Sabres have a very easy schedule down the run, so Skinner could be a high-end asset. And Hill has been injured often, according to It's Our Year, and so Thompson could be a really good goalie pickup for a lot of teams. I added that in there just for you. Yaz, also a seller this year. Wants for them, picks. Yaz are looking to load up for the draft next year, so any picks that you're willing to give up, change for some of their players, they're open to hearing. On the block is more so about their untouchables. So anybody except Matthews, Sorokin, Dahlin, Dunn, and Hannafin. Those are the top 5 guys right now for Yaz. Don't come asking, I guess, about them because those are his current untouchables. But again, willing to sell anybody else. So you never know, for the right price, certainly go asking. Halifax Highlanders, also a seller, sitting in 11th place in the standings. Their wants, and I quote, don't matter. So whatever you feel like giving up to Halifax Highlanders, I mean, you know, we'll see what they what deals they're willing to accept. In past years, Halifax Highlanders has not really been all that interested in trying to gain additional picks in exchange for their players that just went straight into the draft and free agency. So you know, different strategies for different folks. So it don't matter for Halifax Highlanders on the wants. On the block for them, the top 3 assets, and there's some good ones, would be Mitch Marner, Sasha Barkov, and Hill, who we just talked about with It's Our Year. So both goalies for Vegas right now are available through the right buyer between It's Our Year and Halifax Highlanders. And last but certainly not least, North Korea sitting in last place. Quite simply, big time seller. Their want picks on the block, anyone. So come to North Korea for whatever you might be looking at, and see if you can make yourself a deal. Now, you want to have all the information, so I did up this little page. It is taken straight from the sheet that I put onto our Facebook group, but I added a few additional things just to make sure that everybody is straight on drafting and keepers for next year. So going into next season, and you know what, I even had to remind myself of some of the rules that I had made up from last year. So just to be absolutely clear, all teams are going to be eligible to keep up to and including 9 skaters and 1 goalie. I think some people had actually said 9 players including a goalie. It's actually 9 skaters plus a goalie. So essentially you can keep 10 players total, which is just a little over half your roster. You are not required to keep that many players. You're not required to keep a goalie. You're not required to keep 9 skaters. That is just the maximum that you can keep. So totally going to be up to you whether you want to use up certain picks to keep guys, or whether you'd rather let them go and see if you can improve using the picks that you have available to you. You may keep any player for up to 3 years, with their draft pick value increasing by 1 for each kept year, starting after 2024. So what I mean by that is, as an example, if you draft somebody in the 6th round in this upcoming draft in 2024, or let's say you use a keeper, choose one of your guys to be a keeper as a 6th round pick, 2024. In 2025, you must give up that 6th round pick again to be able to keep them. If you've chosen to use a keeper as a 6th round pick this year, then you would it'd be a 6th round pick to keep them in 2025. 2026, you must give up a 5th round pick to keep them, because again it increases by 1 for each year kept. And then in 2027, you would have to give up a 4th round pick to keep that same player, and that's again if you're choosing to keep them through that. That would then be their last season. You're able to hold them to keep that player. So essentially you can get a total of 4 seasons out of any particular kept player. Exception to that is the players that we've had on our teams already. This season in 2023-2024 is being used as a keeper year that counts against them, so you have 2 more seasons to go with them. Due to not having true draft values, all players kept in 2024 will be done so based on their ADP, or average draft position, which is done by Yahoo. So it's the only fair way to do this. And then once we've done this for this upcoming draft, it will strictly be based on where you've drafted them going forward. So if you have a player you would like to keep and their ADP is shown as, say, 63rd overall, this would make them equivalent to being a 6th round draft pick, which would fall between 61st to 72nd. And so a 6th round pick or higher would need to be given up to keep them. The or higher part is a pretty key aspect here. So if you end up having multiple players who are 6th round pick eligible, you could, if you have it, give up a 5th round pick to keep a 6th round pick ADP level player, if you feel like they're worth it. So again, just something to keep in mind. ADP will also be rounded off to the nearest number. So if an ADP reads something like 12.4, it will be rounded down because, again, sometimes there is decimal places. And it will be rounded down to be a first-round pick, to be worth a first-round pick. If an ADP reads 12.5, then we would be rounding that up to be a second-round pick. So that's just one very specific example if we come across it. When it comes to trading, this is more a general thing, but you will need to determine the value for each of your players. So when you're giving up a player, if you think you may want to keep them for the following season and give the corresponding draft pick, you're going to want to, when trading players, determine what you believe that traded player's value is going to be ADP in their ADP next season, or if you think you might actually want to keep them with whatever that ADP is. Maybe there's some players on your team that you don't think you're going to be able to retain, and you are maybe looking to move them for a big pick. Whatever it may be, those are all options. But just keep general value in mind based on ADP. It will be much easier to know after this year what the actual value of players are, because we will have literally drafted players into given rounds, which is going to be what their value is. All players kept from the 2023 draft count as your first of 3 eligible keep years. I just kind of touched on. They can be kept again for 2024 and 2025, with 2025 being their final season to be kept. Lastly, I decided to do up this. So here's a list of each team's keepers from last year, and this is, again, purely for example, what their ADP was going into this season. So this is just giving you an example of the players that you all chose to keep on your teams for this year with the old keeper rules, and what their based on their ADP, what their value would have been going into this season. Now, obviously, this is a lot of players. This is going to change a lot based on how they've been doing this season. Some players, I'm sure their ADP has gone up. Other players have gone down. So let's just quickly look at it and give some examples. So for Curiosity Code DeBrincat, Matthew Tkachuk, their ADP was 7th overall across everybody. So which is worth a first round pick. Fox was 26th, just barely into the 3rd round, almost worth a 2nd round pick. And Allmark was 30th, also worth a 3rd round pick. So as an example, for Curiosity Code DeBrincat, let's say the ADP fell into this exact same margin for these 3 players. If Curiosity Code DeBrincat wanted to keep both Fox and Allmark, they would either have to have 2 3rd round picks to keep them, or they'd have to have a 2nd round pick to give up to be able to keep one of these players, and a 3rd round. So again, that's just as an example. If they want to keep all 3 of these players, you would need a 1st and 2 thirds, or a 1st, 2nd, and a 3rd. Or even technically 2 firsts if you thought one of them was worth a 1st round pick, but up to you. Same thing here. So return of Captain Thicknick, Pasternak, Kaprizov, Pettersson, are they all still worth where they're at? Pettersson having a really good year, 27th, just barely into the 3rd round. Is Pettersson now going to be worth a 2nd round pick next year? Kaprizov, how's he been doing this year? Is he maybe going to slip to a 3rd round pick? Let's see. Bettman returns of everybody is actually no, one of 2 teams to have what would be 2 1st round picks. McKinnon and Kucherov having great seasons. Going to be hard to know, but are they both going to be worth a 1st round pick? Chances are good right now that Bettman returns is going to have to give up probably one of these players going into next year's draft. Grisky's All-Stars, Rantanen, Makar, Crosby. Makar just barely into the 2nd round. Is he going to jump up? Rantanen's going to slide down. Where's Crosby going to be at? And same thing across the board. So Jack Hughes, Brady Tkachuk, both were worth 1st round picks last year. I'll use my own team as an example. So H. Thompson was actually 12th overall. He's not having a great year. For me personally, I don't believe he's going to be worth a 1st round pick in next year's draft, leaving my 1st round pick maybe a little more open. However, Panarin was worth a 3rd round pick last year, but he's having a really great season. So he might jump up to be worth a first or a second or a first round pick. Myers also having a terrible season. So, you know, what kind of pick is he going to be worth? Is he going to even be worth keeping to me? Or do one of you folks want to pick him up? Any and all of the above. We had the replacements actually drop one of his keepers, Batherson, this year, who is now on Messi guarantee. Worth noting, if you've dropped a keeper and somebody else picks them up in free agency, that allows this to be reset. So Batherson has no longer burned a keeper year for Messi guarantee. If Messi guarantee wants to keep Batherson, it's not based on anything that's predetermined. It'll strictly be based on their ADP as a first-time keep. And again, just going through, look at that. Matthews with 3 Ts, gotta love it. Robertson, Marner, Barkov. You know, Jason Robertson not having as good a year, probably not going to be worth a first-round pick next year, but you never know. And again, just looking across the board, that's really what you're going to have to compete with. It's the mystery that everybody has, so none of us are 100% certain, but it's just worth keeping in mind that you're going to want to, if you have certain guys who you desperately are going to want to keep, you're going to need to have the picks to do so. So, with all of that being said, one final look. Here's your trade board. Have a good look at it. Feel free to screenshot and then start asking around. Trade deadline is next Wednesday. I'm sorry for being so late on getting this video out, but I hope you appreciate it, and we will be talking soon. Thanks.